wait a minute. Luke used to work for Dave Ramsey here in town, and he now runs Foxy Cart full-time with his partner Brett. But Luke and I live half mile from each other, and we have coffee on a regular basis. And one day he said, hey, I want you to come have coffee with this guy. I want you to meet this guy. I think you'll like him. And the guy that he introduced me to was this gentleman here, John Shear. John is the director of IT at Foxy Cart? No, I'm sorry, at Lampo. I'm promoting him, Luke. He's the director of IT at the Lampo Group, and he's going to talk to us about a subject that, when I decided we wanted to have an opening keynote, I said we needed something that's going to apply to everybody. And one of the things that applies to everybody that's on a team at any company is the corporate culture or the development team culture. And these guys have figured out, it might not be the only way, but they've got a good way. So I'm going to let John talk to you now about corporate culture. Give him a hand.
Guys, when Cal called me at first, I wasn't sure if he knew that I never delivered a keynote before first. So then it made me wonder if he had sent the email to the wrong person and he had meant to send it to someone else. Then he asked me to talk about team culture at a tech conference, which seemed like it maybe didn't fit. I looked at all the other speakers, some of the guys from our team, and they're talking about SaaS and less. How is this thing going to fit in? So bear with me, but we're going to go through some fun stuff today. I'll get some input from you guys on this too. All right, so great team culture. You know, what is it? We've heard it's a lot of different things. You think about great team culture, you might think about companies like Facebook and Google. You see their cool offices and hear about their cool perks, and you might think that's good team culture. Or maybe you've had a group of people that you've worked with before that you really enjoyed. A group that if one of them called you back today, you'd leave the company you're at to go work with them again because you so enjoyed it. So today we're going to talk about why great culture is not all about foosball tables, free lattes, I like the monkey, unicorns, and the promise of rainbows. There is a lot more to good culture. It's my new favorite. So a little bit about me. My name is John Shear, I'm the Executive Director of Internet Development at Dave Ramsey, the Lampo Group. We've got a team of about 50, almost 55 now, very passionate and talented professionals that are going after this mission of helping people get debt-free. So day in and day out, we get to work on stuff that we really love, we believe in, and that alone makes it a great place to work. But we've done some other things to really help create a good team culture. We'll talk about that in a little bit here. I'm a little bit left brain, a little bit right brain, technology professional. I've been in tech for 17 years, since about 1995. And in that time, I've experienced a lot of different team cultures. Our team, shown here, is a really wild group, a lot of fun to work with. We've got some guys here today. If you can, check out their talks. They've got some really good talks. Kevin Powell and Jim Stefanski and Eli, and there's some others I'm looking forward to as well. So let's kind of go back to where I started. In 1995, I started working for the city and the school system of Virginia Beach as a network admin. Back when Novell was a big player. Any Novell folks here? Am I showing my age? Okay. That's back when you connected with the network on the command line, your link socket layer, your password, everything. Windows 95 was just getting ready to come out. NT wasn't even a thought yet for the community. I think Microsoft was thinking about it, but it wasn't quite there yet. So I worked for these guys, and most of my job was going out and working on servers and networks at different buildings, and so I didn't really have a team atmosphere there. So my next job after that was working for this company, CDI. Oops. I wish I could claim back ignorance, but I'm not. So CDI. CDI was a marine engineering firm that was a government contractor. So I thought it was really cool because I got security clearance. The FBI come check me out, talk to my elementary school teachers and things like that. Just because of the rooms that I was in. So top secret material, they're working on submarines and aircraft carriers and fun stuff like this. The team culture there was what I would call now a very old school. It was all about the right title and the right position and more money and more power and not really a culture that I wanted to be a part of. Every Sunday night I was dreading Monday morning. I didn't want to go to work. But I got this notion from my parents' generation that you're not going to enjoy your job probably. You might enjoy it a little bit of the time, but the majority of the time you're not going to enjoy it. So just get over it. You know, you're going to love things you do outside of work. But the 9 to 5 is going to be a grind, so why expect anything more? Well, right around that time, I found out about an opportunity in Nashville to come to work with a nonprofit organization. Something I was really passionate about. They were working with middle school and high school students traveling all over the country. And so I packed up everything I could in my 1986 Hyundai Excel. All my music gear, all my books, all my clothes, and I sold the rest, which at the time wasn't much, at 18. And I drove that thing through the Blue Ridge Mountains to Tennessee. At times, I wasn't sure if I'd make it. You know, kind of going up the hills, it slows down to about 30 miles an hour. This was the first year these things were made, so it was a cardboard box on wheels. Now they've got this nice 10-year warranty and all of that. Not back then, no. So I get to Nashville, Tennessee, and while I'm looking for a tech job, I work at Demas's. I go in and meet with Miss Demas in Murfreesboro. She used to show up at the shop back then, and I had a cousin that was working there, and told her, you know, I'm looking for a tech job, but while I'm looking, whether it's 2 weeks or a couple of months, can I come work for you guys? And so with that agreement, she said yes. So I came in and worked for a couple of weeks for them, and man, at that workplace, I saw culture like I hadn't seen before. The management there was not there to kind of keep you under your thumb or watch over you or micromanage you. They were there to make sure that if your table didn't have drinks, it was their job to get your table drinks for you. Their job was to serve the servers. And I just hadn't seen anything like that before. It was a really cool culture. Well, shortly after that, I got a job at Service Merchandise. Any old service folks here? Okay, yeah. Service Merchandise used to have their corporate headquarters over in Brentwood. Pink 10 now has one of their data facilities in the bottom floor, and my office used to be right across the hallway from that. From there, I moved on and worked with a company, ENPE, that had been since acquired by somebody else. They were an environmental engineering firm. And did site work for them and networking. And in both those companies, I saw a little bit more of a friendly culture. I'm not sure if it was the South. Even though I grew up in Virginia Beach and it's below the Mason-Dixon line, it's not really the South. It's more like Philly or New Jersey. People are rude and they like to cuss at you and, you know, give you the finger and all that kind of stuff. So these companies had a little bit of a team culture, but the interesting thing was, even though they go to lunch during the day, at the end of the day, it's kind of where it stopped. You had your work friends and you had your non-work friends. And the ones you had fun with were your non-work friends, right? You made the most of it while you were at work, you know, but you had fun with your non-work friends. And so it still seemed like something was missing in team culture for me. With the nonprofit organization I worked with, we had a great team culture. We liked hanging out together. We hung out when we were working and when we weren't working. And we weren't even getting paid for it. So something really had to be weird there about that. Well, from there, I decided I wanted to purely focus on web work and stop doing the networking stuff. And so I started doing freelance, set up shop with Drove Letter Media, and started doing small sites for artists and a couple of companies. And then during the time I was just getting that set up, I had a life-changing event. I started having some serious back pains. When we traveled on the road, it was 16, 18-hour days. So, I mean, it was not for the faint of heart. You know, you're lugging around gear and big cases full of cables and setting up for shows and all different kinds of stuff. And it was hard work. So I started having some back pain, and I'm 21, and I'm thinking, this isn't right. You know, I'm too young for this, right? So I go in and see the doctor, go into one of those walk-in clinics, and they send me to the emergency room. And as soon as I get there, they send me to a specialist. Well, after going through a round or two of antibiotics, they start running some different tests. And we're just going to check you out for this. It's probably not this, but just in case, we're going to check. So that was Tuesday. I get a call Thursday from my doctor. And he says, "Hey, John, I'm sorry I'm calling you on the phone. I don't usually do this. We like to do this in person. But you have cancer. It's malignant. And you have to come in for surgery tomorrow morning." Wow. What do you do with that? 21 years of age. So I'm at home alone when I get the call. My roommate comes home a couple hours later, and we start talking through it. And I make some phone calls to family and friends, and asking them to pray and let them know what's going on. And the morning I go in for surgery, there were about 30 people there. Some family and friends, but a lot of folks were from this nonprofit that I worked with that showed up. Some of them drove in from out of state just to be there to support me during this thing. Well, it's supposed to be a 4-hour surgery to remove the cancer, turned into 6 hours, and The rest of that week was a series of tests and biopsy and CT scans and lots of stuff that you don't want shoved in you and poked in you, and just trying to find out what was going on with me. Later that week, I went and met with my oncologist for the first time and found out that not only was it cancer, not only was it malignant, but that it was a very rare form of cancer that had spread through my body. The CT scans showed that on my lungs alone, I had 30 to 35 tumors. The blood markers they had run to find out what it was in the first place, this particular blood marker for an average person is between 0 and 5, right? When they ran it 2 weeks earlier, it was at 36,000. The day I went into my oncologist for my first chemotherapy treatment, it was 64,000. It almost doubled in 2 weeks. So, at age 21, I find out that I have final stage cancer, and the doctors give me a 30% chance to live. Well, guys, I don't know about you, I don't know if you have a faith relationship, but for me, it's too big a part of the story not to bring it up now. My relationship with God grew immensely during this time. He gave me incredible peace and strength. And through the next 6 months of 5 days a week, 2 to 6 hours a day of chemo, getting pumped full of this stuff. I had a nice port cath. Anybody seen one of those? Yeah, you lose your fear of needles pretty quick with that. They just kind of poke a needle straight in your chest every day so they can get it right into your heart. Lots of changing my diet and eating different things and lots of prayer. I was pronounced cancer-free, healed. I'm going to move through my slides here more quickly. So what did that experience teach me? I mean, it told me not to settle. Why settle? Life is way too short. Way too short. It taught me to not hold back on things that I might have held back before. Things that maybe I thought that weren't within my control or that I couldn't take care of or I couldn't take action towards. And I started getting plugged in with some other communities where I really got a sense of what it meant to be a part of a good team and to enjoy that in my work and outside of work in different places. So what I want to hear from you guys today is what you consider to be a team. Let's say that we as a group together are going to form a new company, okay? Or maybe it's a new division in a company or whatever. But we've got this new product or idea, and we together as a group are going to go do this thing. And you've seen different things in team culture that you enjoyed before, things that you didn't enjoy. But if we were going to start from scratch, scorched earth, what would be some things that you guys would want to see in our team culture?
Flexibility.
Care of goal.
Passion.
Communication.
You're going to have to write.
I know. Passion?
Sense of humor.
Humor.
Respect.
Leadership. Accountability. Mentorship.
Open workspace. Closed workspace.
Free beer.
Free beer.
Free coffee.
Mentorship.
Training.
No complaining.
No complaining. Wow.
Creativity. No gossip.
You're stealing my thunder, Luke. You're stealing my thunder.
No hierarchy.
Hierarchy.
Affirmation.
Integrity. Trust.
Intelligence. That's a good one.
Depends on what kind of intelligence. We don't need no spies.
No artificial impediments.
You don't see how fast I write, do you?
Purpose.
Egoless.
Do you want egos?
No.
Egoless.
Egoless.
Catalyst, drive. Catalyst for drive.
Determination.
High-speed internet. Incredible tools.
Say again?
Incredible tools.
You mean the people?
Hopefully those aren't the same thing. Sorry? Current hardware.
We need to be cutting edge this year.
Conflict.
Work-life balance.
Autonomy. Open-mindedness.
We want to make a profit. We can keep doing this.
A share of the profitability.
A share of the profitability.
I would say everybody needs to be taught time management,
Time management.
and things need to be defined. We need to have definitions. All these great words are great without what they actually mean.
So maybe create a common language, common understanding of these terms.
Clear expectations.
No vacation policy.
I want to come to work for your company.
Is either always on vacation or never on vacation.
No standing meetings.
Short meetings.
All right, so this is a pretty good list here. What if we had to break this down to the top 12?
Profitability.
What comes first? And the beer. There you go. So the Gallup organization did some very interesting research. How many of you guys have read the book First Break All the Rules? It's been out for about a decade now. Really great book. Gallup organization at the time, this was the largest study ever undertaken. They researched 400 different companies, talked to managers, talked to team members of those managers, to find out what really created good teams. What made teams work, what made teams successful, who were the most productive, who retained people the most, who had the most customer satisfaction. And in their research, they broke it down to 12 different things that someone really has to have at the core. You know, free beer is great, but if I've got a crappy boss, and I've got a crappy boss somewhere else, and they've got free beer and free cake, I'm going over there, right? Like, make the best of it, right? So those things start to become amenities on top of really great culture. And Marcus Buckingham was the author of this book. He's since moved on to work on his own, and he's speaking on his own and focusing on some strengths-based work. You guys have probably seen his books at different places, but he lays this out in terms of climbing a mountain. Okay, so if you look at it as kind of you've got your base camp and some basic needs that you have, and you're rising up a little bit into the culture, and you've got a little bit more that you learn about. And the next camp even more, and the next camp. And once you reach that final camp, you can ascend to the summit because you're really engaged in your role. You really have what you need to do good work based on their research of these 400 different companies. So the questions in Base Camp 1 are, do I know what's expected of me? Pretty basic thing, right? Setting clear expectations. We kind of line some of that out here. Making sure that leadership lets you know what they expect, and they're not just kind of brought on haphazardly and tossed in the deep end and then slapped around when you don't do what you didn't know you were supposed to do in the first place. Do I have the materials and equipment I need to do my work right? Current hardware, the best tools. Those are the basic things you need at Camp 1. Camp 2, at work, do I have every day the opportunity to do what I do best? Do I get to shine? Do I get to play to my strengths? Do I get to do what I love, what I'm really good at? Or do I have to do data entry? Or do I have to do CSS fixes that really the junior guy can take care of for me because I'd rather do architecture? Right? Do I get to do that? In the last 7 days of work, have I been received recognition or praise for doing good work? Does someone catch you doing things right? Do they come by and pat you on the back and thank you for what you're doing? Or is it just considered, hey, that's your job, so don't expect any praise out of that? Right? How many have been there? Does my supervisor or someone at work seem to care about me as a person? Not just my productivity, not just what I bring to the company, but about me personally. Is there someone at work who encourages my development? Helping us to learn and grow and be mentored. From there, you can move on to Camp 2. At work, do my opinions seem to count? Conflict, collaboration, creativity. Can I get those things out there? Do they matter to the organization? Does the mission purpose of my company make me feel that my job is important? Is it something I believe in? Is it something that I think makes a difference in the world? It could be healthcare, it could be an app that you're building that gets people home and taxi cab rides. If you believe in it, do you believe in it? Is that something that you're plugged into? Are my coworkers committed to doing excellent work? Having incredible people that are not tools, right? Do I have a best friend at work? Now this one might sound like middle school. I read this and I thought of the friendship bracelets and the little hearts that split in two and the girls would pass around. And like, wow, best friend at work. Do I really need that? But when I look at cultures where it didn't work, the culture wasn't something I looked forward to, and I looked forward to the cultures that did. I did have a really good friend in those workplaces. So it makes sense. You've got a vested interest in what's going on with that team. Camp 3, just before the summit. In the last 6 months, has someone talked to me about my progress? How many of you guys get only an annual checkup and that's it? Okay, so that's pretty good. That's pretty good, not too many. So in the last year, have I had opportunities to work to learn and grow? These are the 12 things that the Gallup organization did their research on and came to that if we can answer yes to these 12 questions, we move from the bottom of that mountain where we walk into an organization all the way through the psychological process of feeling fully engaged with that organization to reach the summit. So Patrick Lencioni is another one of my favorite authors. He talks about, okay, so once you've found good team culture, once you've found an organization you want to plug in with, how do you keep some of those things? How do you cultivate that culture? Patrick recently has been talking a lot about organizational health. Organizational health is kind of laid out in this grid here. You want to build a cohesive leadership team, and so for us, we'll say our team. Let's say it's flat, okay? So our team here. We might do what GoreTech does. GoreTech in their organization, they have no more than 250 people in each plant, and within that, everyone has a sponsor. So even though the organization's flat, someone is constantly helping to make sure that you're getting mentored and you're learning and you're growing. So let's just say we're doing that. Create clarity as to how the organization works, what's expected, what are communication channels like, what is our vacation policy like. Reinforce that clarity and over-communicate clarity. How many of you guys know everything that's going on in your organization right now? Yeah, not very many of us. How many feel like you know 50% of what's going on in your company right now? A few more, but still not very many, right? So over-communicating, there's a couple of things that our team does. We have a staff meeting every Monday with the entire company. And the purpose of that meeting is to talk about what's going on in the company then. You've got a department over here that you don't work with, and they're telling you what's going on. You might hear a way that you could creatively connect with them with the product that you're working on. It might be a celebration for another product that's just launched. And that really, for us, helps to make sure everyone's plugged into the company. You know what's going on. You feel invested. You feel like you know where things are. For our team, we do a weekly team meeting on Friday afternoons, and again, with 50 people working on a bunch of different stuff, we like to know what's going on. We've even tried to stop doing that meeting, to not have it as a standing meeting, just do it when it's necessary, and man, I got flack from the team in a heartbeat. We like to know what's going on in the places where we work. We like to feel like we've got the information so we can, it's part of our work, make the best decisions. So something else is making sure that they have the right tools, right? So some of you guys know we have been a Cold Fusion shop for, gosh, probably 12 years now, and we're in the process of moving over to Ruby. So we're coming for you. We'll be the largest Ruby shop here pretty soon. But as part of that, we've transitioned our team over to 27-inch iMacs. And we want to make sure they have the best tools. We've been blogging about our transition process. And interestingly enough, someone posted and said it was a waste to get out iMacs. It's like, why don't you just use your Windows machines? Well, that's a good question. Our very there's a couple of you still left, but we're working on it. And for us, it really made a lot of sense. We looked at an Ubuntu environment. We tried to get it running there on our current hardware, because we've got pretty good hardware on the PC side of things. We looked at running it on Windows, and there's some weird quirkiness with trying to get an environment that's ideal and pretty much replica of our production environment. We're running a Linux environment. And so Mac just made a lot of sense for us. We want the guys to have the best tools. We want them to have to hack something together to make it work for them. So we did that. Some of the things that we do as far as communication, to understanding each other's strengths and how to leverage those, is we use a thing called the DISC profile, D-I-S and C. D is your dominant personality, I is your influencer, S is your steadfast, steady, stable, and your C is your compliant or detail-oriented person. And so we're all a blend of all four of these. None of us are any one of these specific things. Depending upon when in my life I've taken the test, I've been a DI, a DC, a DS. I'm always D first. I'm a driver. I definitely like to get things done. We use this as a communication tool in our company to understand how we're all put together, how we're wired, how we like to receive praise, how we like to work, what types of projects we like to work on, how we like communication back and forth. Another thing I use with my leadership team, and we're starting to use more across the company, is the Myers-Briggs profile. This is a different look into personality. How many of you guys have taken Myers-Briggs or DISC? Okay, so quite a few. So you guys are pretty familiar with it. The thing I love about Myers-Briggs is it gives you a breakdown of different personalities that you might connect well with in different situations. I love that. It's like, hey, if you need this, this is probably the kind of person you want to connect with over here. The other thing that I love about it is it gives you historical characters that you might be pretty similar to. And so if you like reading, nonfiction, you can go read a biography about someone and get even more of a sense and kind of relate to some of their struggles, especially if they're farther on in life, and you can learn from that. The third thing we use is the StrengthsFinder 2.0. How many of you guys have taken that? Okay, a few. StrengthsFinder 2.0 is a book that was put out by the Gallup organization, and it kind of came out of the beginning of this research we just walked through. They found that good managers did a key thing that other managers did not. And we can switch that up from managers to leaders. I would say these guys are more leaders. But they did a key thing that others did not. They focused on their team members' strengths and drawing those out instead of trying to put things in that aren't in there in the first place. So they give examples of a restaurant where you've got a guy and he's got 4 different servers, and he knows that they receive appreciation different ways and they've got different strengths, and so he uses them in different ways in the restaurant. He doesn't try to make them carbon copies of each other, right? In a workplace environment, you've got a couple of different team members working on programming, and some really are great with pulling requirements from the client, and some are not. And so instead of trying to have everyone pull requirements from the client, you start to have people specialize in different areas, focus on their strengths, and they really try to help those team members pull out even more of their strengths and dive into that. On the Myers-Briggs, I'm an ENFJ. On the StrengthsFinder, mine are strategic, relator, arranger, responsibility, and belief. When I first took this test, I was pretty interested because strategic, yeah, that sounds awesome, right? Everybody wants that. At least I did. Relator, arranger, I can see the different pieces and kind of help put things together. And then I got to responsibility and kind of felt gypped off by the test a little bit. Shouldn't everybody be responsible to some extent? I mean, what's that? Belief? What is that? How is that a strength? I don't quite get that. So what this did for us, though, is it helped to create a common language around what strengths are. So we talked about that. What do all these terms mean? How do we define these? Well, for strengths, that's what this did for us. And so as I started to read through the details of what responsibility and belief meant, I was thrilled with how that adds value to our team. I was excited about that. The test is pretty easy to take. It's like a $20 book. There's a coupon code in the back, and the test will take you like 30 minutes. And the other thing that it has with this are ideas for action for each one of your 5 strengths. Based on what your 5 strengths are, it gives you a chance to put some focus towards growing in those strengths. Instead of just knowing what they are, it gives you some ideas to actually take action towards those. Another thing you got to do is you got to celebrate it. We as technologists can move through one thing, onto the next, onto the next, onto the next. We're doers. We like to get stuff done. We like to see progress. We like to learn new things. But if we don't stop and celebrate those moments, stop and just take a moment out to go get coffee, or, I'm not saying throw a huge party. I mean, that's nice every now and then, right, for big things. But stop and celebrate the little things. Catch each other doing things right. How many of you in your first job felt like you were getting caught doing things wrong? More than caught doing things right. Okay, you guys had it better than I did. Catch each other doing things right. Look for opportunities to encourage each other, to praise each other, even if it's in the little stuff. I mean, don't call someone up, on their phone when you see them walking to work on time and say, "Hey, good job getting to work on time." I mean, make it something that's worth it, but look for those opportunities. Our leaders also do a lot of one-on-one time. Each week, our leaders meet with everybody on the team one-on-one, just to check in and find out how things are going, find out how they're doing. We encourage our guys to get together for lunch, and some of them do sports together. They do taekwondo. Some of them play video games together. See any StarCraft fans in the house? Yeah, I have a few of you guys. So yeah, I know you are. They get together for that. We did a LAN party this past weekend. We just like to get together outside of the office. This is the first place where I've worked where I didn't have my office friends and my non-office friends. Like it's just mixed together. And the culture is so much better for it. But you've got to put in the time. If it's something that's uncomfortable for you, if it's something that's a stretch for you, take the time, make the effort. If no one else is making it, you have the opportunity to. Take them out to lunch, find out what their interests are. You're not going to connect with everybody in the same way, but find somebody you think you might and give it a shot. The other thing we do is we try to have the tough conversations. We try to have good conflict. Patrick Lencioni, in his book, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, talks about the 5 different stages of dysfunction within a team and the enemies of those things. And the first in that is trust. The second is conflict. The third is commitment. The fourth is accountability. And the last one are results, and tied to status and ego there. So before you can even get to really talking about results, before you can even really get to talking about commitment, you've got to build trust within a team first, and it's spending that time that makes that happen. It's important. The other thing you've got to do every now and then is you got to set a rally cry. Patrick, in another one of his books, Silence, Politics, and Turf Wars, talks about setting a rally cry every now and then. It's something that the whole team can get behind. Oftentimes we're working on different projects in our own areas, but every now and then pulling everybody onto one thing together, having one thing you can all focus on, really lifts the team up. It gives you a central focus. So for us this last year, the process of choosing a new language, moving from Cold Fusion to Ruby, we asked the guys to code in the project, and we got all kinds of crazy names in for that thing. Jawbreaker was the one that we settled on. We couldn't just bite right into selecting a new language. We had to work through the layers to get to it. But this gave the thing a name. It needed a rally cry. We put a vision statement on it to select innovative programming languages that help bolster company and team growth. This gave something for the whole team to pull around. Now, this is done, and we'll go for a little while and not have a rally cry, and then we'll have another one. But it's something that really brings the team together. Over-communicating. I can't stress this enough. If you're in doubt, communicate. If you're still in doubt, over-communicate. Rock out. Oh, it's still going. I thought that was it. Awkward. So as part of this, we also have a no gossip policy in our company. This is part of protecting that culture now. All right. No gossip for us is we define gossip as this. Gossip is talking about anything negative to anyone who can't affect change for you. So if you're just complaining to somebody, you're taking all that negativity and you've just dumped it off on them like a mailman. It doesn't help you, it doesn't help them, and will tear apart the culture that you've worked so hard to build. This is a killer. This will eat away at the culture. You've got to fight it. So we've got a strict no gossip policy. We take it so seriously that if you gossip once, we'll talk to you about it if it's not too egregious. And the second time, we'll fire your butt. We'll pack your stuff and walk you out the front door. But guys, it keeps the culture really clean. You don't have to worry about people talking about you. You actually talk about the stuff you need to talk about. If you've got something going on with somebody, I really don't like Bob over here, man. He's such a tool. He keeps doing this, and I bring my designs to him, and he keeps shutting them down, and he won't tell me why. Well, we need to get you and Bob together and talk about that and get it sorted out. And if we can't, then it might be time for one of you to move on, because we just don't need that constant unresolved conflict going on without talking about it. We're not going to do that, because it will tear apart your culture. You're going to spend the time to build it, spend the time to protect it too. The other thing I would say is part of that is have those tough discussions. We talked about that a little bit earlier. How many of you guys like conflict? Yeah, it was like 3, right? None of us really like conflict. I might a little bit. But especially for engineering types, we want to take care of our work and do as little conflict as possible. Give me what I need to do my work, and man, I really enjoy this, and I don't want to go ruffle his feathers. He's a nice guy at heart. I know he didn't mean it this way. And guys, we've got to have the tough conversations. We've got to get in the room, and it doesn't have to be a personal thing. And I think for us, sometimes that's what it might feel like, especially as engineering types. That it feels like it's a personal attack. Talk about the issue. Get to the details of what's going on. Talk about the numbers, the facts, and maybe less about the emotion, and kind of pull some of that out of it for you. But you've got to have the conversation. If you take the time to do that, your culture will be so much stronger for it. If you don't take the time to do it, it's going to sit there and underwrite. All these things you're trying to do to build culture won't take root. Hiring. This is the other thing you can do. Protect people that are coming in. And protect your team from people that are coming in or trying to come into the organization. How many of you guys were given your last job after 2 interviews? After 1 interview? Raise your hands. Go on. 2 interviews? 1 interview? Okay. 3 interviews? How many of you really felt like you knew the person that you were going to work for? Yeah. Hardly any of us, right? So you might have met your best friend at one point, or maybe the person that's now your spouse, and the moment you met them, there was an instant connection. You thought, man, this person's going to be in my life for a very, very, very long time, if not for life, right? Well, most of us don't have that experience. But most of the jobs that I've been interviewed for, I got an offer after only 1 or 2 interviews. If you're going to take the time to build a good culture, take the time to protect it, and take the time to get to know people that you're interviewing. Take them out for coffee. Get them outside of your office. Get them into an environment where they're going to get a little more loose and a little more themselves, right? It's worth the effort, again, if you're going to build culture, to protect it. Make sure that they know what your culture is and what it's not also. Give them that fair shot as well. Give them a chance to meet different people on the team that they're going to work with. One thing that we don't do is I don't hire somebody and then pass them off to Eli and say, hey, Eli, here's your new guy. Good luck. And Eli's like, man, this guy just breaks me like a chalkboard. What did you do, John? We want to have people that give them the opportunity to meet with the people they're going to work with, because that's part of the culture as well as that good chemistry. So take the time there, spend the time. It's so worth it. We have a very low attrition rate, and I believe largely it's due to that. So here's what I want you to do now. Just to pull out your iPhone, your laptop, or notepad, or whatever you got with you, moleskin, and write down one thing you would like to change in your team culture. Take a minute. There might be 14, but just pick one. Now I want you to write down what you are personally going to do to help see that change happen. Don't let yourself get caught up here. Sometimes we can get caught in the trap of, well, man, that's really my leader's responsibility to make sure that happens. I don't have control over that. Look for something you do have control over. Decide to take some action this week. It might be taking one of your coworkers out for lunch that you've been butting heads with for a little while. Or a leader that you don't quite get, doesn't quite get you. Take them out to lunch, ask them what's important to them. Ask them what their biggest challenge is in the office right now. Take the time and invest it. You want to help see a good culture built into your company. You have to not only be a consumer of it, you have to help cultivate it. Well, guys, thanks for your time this morning. I appreciate it, showing up so early. It's nice to see such a good crowd. First year at a conference on an early Saturday morning. Cal and team have done an amazing job putting this thing together. Some great speakers coming up. I know you're going to enjoy it. Here's some resources. I'll put this up on SlideShare right after this presentation, listing the books, some of the tests, and my Twitter handle. If you guys have any questions, feel free to contact me. All right, we've got a couple minutes for Q&A if anybody has any questions.
What was one of the biggest challenges you faced to build this culture that you have at Mayville?
One of the biggest challenges for us right now is hiring. There are people we could hire that would plug in that either don't have the technical skill or don't have the culture. So when we hire, I'm first looking for culture, right? I could hire an 18 player that's just a putz to work with, and it's not really worth it for the rest of the team. I might get a lot of stuff done for a little bit of time, but eventually it's going to impact our culture. So it's finding that balance right now. And because it's a player's market, and because we're in Nashville, Tennessee, and for us as a company, we don't do telecommuting, folks have to move here. So that's one of our biggest struggles right now. I'd say the other thing is having those conflict discussions. I remember about a year ago, one of the guys on the team, we had a little issue with gossip, and we had to address it with him. And he came in with kind of like deer in the headlights look. He'd been with us for a little while, and at first he didn't quite get it, and we talked through it, and he's like, okay, yeah, I get it. And about 6 months later, he came back and said, hey, you know what? This thing works. Thanks for calling me out. So I think it's just being purposeful about it.
On the gossip, how did you, was that instantiated from the very beginning, or was that added in later when the team building started?
It was added in a little bit later, early on in the company. We're 20 years old now as an organization. But it was there pretty early on. There have been companies that have come and met with us that have instantiated it after, and the deal there is really being purposeful and calling it out as soon as you see it. It's going to be a big switch for a company that's been going around for a little while, but I would suggest you could even start with your team.
I'm not sure if this applies to your organization, but how do you tackle when the team actually expands in different cities and you have multiple offices? How does the culture fit? Do you let other branches have their own brand or flavor of culture, or do you actually keep it?
I can't really answer that question. I don't know if we'll ever go there. Dave's pretty old school by his own admission, and he wants everybody in the building. So right now we're not even doing telecommuting. I hope we'll get there one day. That's my sincere hope. When we get there, I'll let you know. But right now, we just haven't gone there, so I couldn't give you an answer that would really carry any weight.
Hey, John. I know that you guys have sort of like the team as a whole, but then you break it down into each sort of like different groups, different projects. How do those different projects work within the context of the larger team, just sort of different groups?
Yeah, so we have most development teams focused on a product, division, or department in the organization. And while they're responsible for supporting and partnering with that department, they're also responsible for supporting the whole company. In our organization, we've got a pretty unique blend. Dave, when he started the company, decided that anyone who had a new idea that turned into a product or a department, he would let them run it as if it was an individual small business inside the company. So now we have like 17 of these. And we're responsible for supporting the architecture that powers all of that, and the infrastructure, and working with those individual groups. So some teams are as small as 1 or 2 or 3 people, and some are as large as 10 people. And they all do have a little bit of their own unique cultures inside, or at least chemistry or personalities. Like one of our teams is very more engineering-minded, very focused, and quieter, and more softly spoken. And we've got other teams that are more boisterous and sarcastic, and so there's a sense of that too. And that's important to keep.
Kind of related to that, what do you use for internal project management? Do you have your
Jira for a really long time, Confluence alongside that in the Microsoft project. We're actually looking at moving to a tool called @Task. You guys are familiar with that? It's incredibly flexible. Our challenge right now is we're trying to do portfolio management for an organization of 350 people, but there are a ton of projects going on because of the different profit and loss centers. And so we've got to maintain the portfolio overall for these teams that are partnering with creative, video, and marketing, print, and development. So we've got to have something a little more robust because marketing needs their own portfolio, we need our portfolio, the department needs their portfolio, and that all wraps up into an overall company portfolio. Basecamp and tools like that just don't have that much flexibility. They weren't designed for it. By Jason's own admission, he didn't want to go there.
John, what advice would you have for people that are in this room that feel like they can't impact change to their leadership? You as a leader, how would you want to be approached if somebody is really passionate about one of these items on the list, but they feel like, wow, I can't make a change, this has to change. How do you want to be approached as a leader about the change?
Yeah. There's a great book that I've just started. I can't recommend the whole thing because I haven't finished it, but it's called The Orange Team, and the subtitle is How One Team Can Change the Culture of an Organization. So what I'm seeing so far in there is it's taking the time to go have those discussions. It's taking the time to, as a team, deciding that you're going to do things differently. And as you show value, as you show results from that, leadership is going to start seeing that. I've got a mentor of mine that works for a Fortune 500 company. As far as profitability, they're in the top 25. And he's one of their sales managers. And he's trying to do this new mentorship, leadership training thing inside the organization. He's got a lot of pushback, lots of pushback. But he's this top sales team in the country. And so you can't not listen to that, but for so long. Something is working there. And leadership, even though they might not get it, they do want to learn about it and see it repeated, if for nothing else but profitability. So speak their language. Talk to them about what's of value to them.
Can you describe your physical, how the physical development areas are laid out to foster collaboration so give people a chance to get their own work done?
It's a great question. Yeah, so we, because of our culture, we didn't really want to do offices, individual offices. That starts to break that down, our opinion. Others have different opinions, I'm fine with that. So we have key walls that are about 54 inches tall, and we're actually in the process of completely redoing our space right now. So we've got the traditional cubes, it's the L shape, right? Those are kind of hard for paired programming, so we're going to straight desks. And we're also making those desks mobile, so that if we have different teams that need to swap and change up, they can just move their entire deal and slide in together. The environment's pretty dark. We keep the lights off. The guys don't like fluorescence. So